Hello everyone. It's Lindsay Landry, intuitive and spiritual business mentor, and welcome to today's Real Magic episode. Today we're going to be talking all about getting intimate with life. So I'm both excited and nervous about today's episode and conversation. So getting here has been a little bit bumpy, so I'll share a little bit about that. I'm also going to share about the Heart Magic retreat and some of the gems, that have bloomed and seeded, from the ceremonies as well. And I really want to talk about this conversation around getting intimate with life, and what this means to me is when we're wanting to maybe deepen our own gifts, right, and work with our clients on a deeper level, or take them to a deeper place, or maybe when we're wanting to deepen our own relationships, right? Our intimate relationships with our partners or our family, our friends, our clients. When we're wanting those deeper connections, there's this way that it invites us to get intimate with ourselves and also to get intimate with life. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be sharing some of the the pieces that I've personally been working, but what I've been learning through my own process of opening and getting more intimate with life. And so let's just take a few breaths here. And so just as you arrive, I invite you to notice how you're feeling. One of the things, this process of getting intimate with life, it really starts with this awareness and this presence of yourself, of where you are. So just checking in, seeing where are you right now. And you can just notice, or is your mind spinning? Were you just in a client session and then you're arriving here? So maybe you're still thinking about the session, or maybe you are needing something for yourself. So just noticing. You can also notice how your heart feels, if there's any emotions that are moving through you. Notice how your belly feels. Is your breath moving through your belly? Or does it feel tight or constricted? Yeah, so just noticing without judgment. Our ability to be intimate with life and to connect, deeply with life and with the people in our life and the opportunities in our life is also directly related to our ability to connect to ourself. If we are wanting a partner to show up for us, but we aren't present, we might be missing out, right? We might be missing out on the moment where they are showing up for us. Or if we're wanting a client to show up a certain way and we aren't completely present, right? Again, we might be missing out. And so presence, being present with what is and where you are, is this first step of really beginning to get intimate with life and to get intimate with yourself. And sometimes, when we begin to get present with what is, it's not what we really want, or it's not where we desire to be or how we desire to feel. And I want to just share a little bit about my getting here, because I feel like it kind of serves this picture. So I had my Heart Magic retreat. That was about a week and a half ago. I got home, and coming off of that retreat, I was like proud of myself for doing it, and like the fact that like, oh my God, this really became reality, right? And what I was also really present to is like the reality, right? The reality of it. Like, I was tired. Like, it took a lot of energy. We drove 6 hours there. We drove 6 hours back. There's a lot of mental energy that goes into prepping for a big event like this, where you're sleeping for 3 nights and you're holding space for people. And so I was tired. I was physically tired and also physically vulnerable. Like I felt like I showed, myself naked a little bit. And anytime you are stepping into a new phase of your business where you are offering something new, or you're putting yourself out there in a bigger way, right? And this bigger way might even just be you starting to post on Facebook and starting to put out your offers, right? It doesn't even have to be this next level of your offer. Maybe that is your next level, right? Or even your next level of your relationship, where you're like opening your heart a little bit more to your partner or to the people that have been in your life. Maybe you're letting them see you a little bit more. It can be really vulnerable, and so as I was like coming home, I really I started to feel this vulnerability. And I noticed myself like not wanting to really do much, not wanting to do much, but like also even just sharing in my Facebook community, it felt like, being exposed. And even like yesterday, I sent out an email for the first time in probably 2 or 3 weeks. And, it felt like I had to get myself to do it. And one of the things that I talked about in, the email was passion, and this void of passion. And when we're feeling super passionate about things, there's this way that it's easy to show up and do, the steps, write an email or write a post. And there's going to be times when we feel super vulnerable or, super tender. And, this idea of being present with what is, right? So I could show up and pretend like, oh my God, I had this retreat and it was amazing and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, yes, that would be true, and it wouldn't be true because it's not where I was in the moment, right? So there would be this disconnect, this authenticity, right? And when we allow ourselves to really be present with what is, it creates an opening not just for yourself, but for everyone, for real truth, for real connection, for real authenticity, And so, I noticed this during my retreat and ceremonies. And then when I got home, I was continuously being shown and asked to stay on this edge of the vulnerability. And also, often when we are feeling vulnerable or we're feeling tender or we're feeling less than perfect, right? There's this way that we can go hide, right? So maybe it's like I need to only feel those feelings by myself in my room when I'm all alone, no one else is here. You might find yourself doing this, and maybe when other people are around you, you kind of go into that like holder mode or the mom mode or the expert mode where you're like the space holder and the tender. I noticed, the first night of my ceremony, I was sort of working this layer of tending the space and holding the space and like really knowing and allowing myself to be in my own process, because I know that when I'm in my own process, I am holding the space and I am tending the space better than when my mind is trying to do it, right? And so it's uncomfortable, right? It's vulnerable when you allow yourself to stay present in your own experience, in your own discomfort, in your own messiness, right? In your own thoughts and insecurities, while you are still staying present with others, and showing up in relationship. And again, this is whether you're in your business or friends, your husband, whoever, right? And so this was my practice, like being willing to stay present with myself and what was and what's true, and also to stay open, and so, even getting back from my ceremony, James was sort of in his own process as I got back. I don't know how much of the details I want to go into, just because I want to honor him in his own process. But, what I noticed for myself is in the past, I would have wanted to jump in and control or give my opinions or share what I thought he should do, right? And as I was being present with myself and staying with myself, what I actually chose to do this time is to let him have his own experience and to trust him, and when we do this, it's really vulnerable. It's really vulnerable because we don't know what decision the other person's going to make, and if we're willing to stay, are they going to be willing to stay, or are they going to leave us? And are they going to make a bad decision that then affects us, right? And so I stayed in the vulnerability with myself, and also trusting him and staying present with him in his own emotions and thoughts. And this was something too in the past. What I've noticed is when he goes into his stories or his thoughts, there's this way that I would want to kind of coach him or help him get out of it, right? Or help him go deeper into it. And just kind of sitting on the edge, being present. It was so amazing to watch as he not only did it for himself, right? But he was more grounded, and this joy and this light, right, started to enter him even in the moments where he was uncertain and, he wasn't sure about the decisions he was making and those types of things. And so what I noticed through this process, right, where I'm staying with myself, staying with these tender, vulnerable parts of me, and allowing him to be in his own process, what I noticed is it actually allowed us to have this deeper connection within our relationship. And we were able to be present with each other and appreciate each other in a much deeper way than we have in the past. We've had these moments in the past, but I would say not to the capacity or for this length of time. In the past, it might be one little sweet moment. And this has been, really almost 2 weeks now. And so, this willingness to be present with yourself and the truth of what is. And, there's this way that we're so good at the mind, right? And we're so good at mindset work. And I'm not against mindset work, but what I will say is there's a way that we go into the story. And when we're in stories about what we think is, we're not actually being present with what is. Or when we're in, you know, or when we're going into the what we think we want or into the vision, we're not actually present with what is. And so this presence is like really truth of what is. Like, where are you on these levels? And so I want to just take a few breaths here and just let you check in again, you know? So this is just for you. No one else has to know. And also, there's nothing wrong with where you are, you know? So I pretty much all of last week and this week too, you know, when I showed up in my group, I just let myself say where I was, you know, like, I'm not happy today. I'm feeling sad. I'm still feeling vulnerable, you know, however many days later. And I noticed even just saying where I was sometimes felt vulnerable. And once I really started to give myself permission, the passion actually started to come back online. And I'll talk about that in a second. But let's first just take a few breaths into like what really is right now for you. And, you know, there's this way too, like we can say like, oh yeah, things are going great. It's sunny outside and I feel pretty good today. And then it's like, and I don't have clients. Okay, so let's not just pretend like it's all sunny and butterflies, you know, if you want clients and you don't have them. Let's include that, right? Include the heaviness and the reality of what actually is. Or maybe your business is going great and, you know, your relationship is kind of meh. Like, you know, maybe you and your partner are like kind of drifting apart as you're putting more energy into your business. So let's not just pretend like everything is great, you know, like there's the both, right? It's like, yeah, it's good. And like this other thing is happening and I'd really like it to be different. Yeah, and you can notice, you know, that place where it's like, yeah, and I'd really like this to be different. And yeah, and maybe also noticing the places where you're like wanting to fix or tend to yourself, right? So sometimes when we're feeling vulnerable, and I found myself doing this at one point during the week, I'm like, oh my God, how can I make myself feel better? What do I need to feel better, right? I'm not feeling passionate. What do I need to try to feel passionate? So just notice if you have any of that happening. I'm not feeling inspired in my business. How can I make myself feel inspired, right? What do I need to feel inspired? Yeah, because this, what do I need or how do I change it? The wanting to change it is actually keeping you out of the presence of it. So let's just see, like, can you actually go closer to what is? And just see it and let it be there without trying to change it or make it something different. And also it's both, right? Because it's like, yeah, some things are good. So include that too, right? We're including both. We're being present with all that is. Good. So notice how that feels. So for some of you, I can feel you settling in and grounding a little more within yourself. And some of you, it's kind of squirmy, like, oh, I don't really know if this is doing anything or helpful. This is uncomfortable. And I just want to say, both are okay. It is uncomfortable, especially in the beginning when you're learning how to stay with yourself. And that was the next thing that I really wanted to talk about, like this willingness to stay in the discomfort. And sometimes that discomfort is in ourself, and sometimes that discomfort is around us, so for some of us that are really sensitive, when there's a lot happening outside of us, so maybe it feels like your significant others in a process, or a lot's happening with your clients, or maybe your kids, right? Or your animals. I think I was telling a client this week, when I was first in magic school a few years ago, I guess it was like 3 years ago now, part of my process when I would start to get uncomfortable in myself is I would call in messiness from my animals. So my dog would roll in dog poo, my cat would start peeing on things, and it was like this mirror, of my own like squirminess and my own energy. So when things are happening outside of us, it can kind of pull us outside of ourselves, but the invitation is here is like, can we stay with all of it? Right? So staying present with ourselves, the part in ourselves that's not feeling supported, not feeling seen, needing more, craving more, that's, uncomfortable, that's so tired of like tending all the outside stuff. And then also staying with what is happening outside of us, so it's like when our partner or client is in their own process that feels uncomfortable to us, maybe they're having some emotions like sadness or rage or anger, right? Or I know for myself, sometimes when like a lot of story comes up and mental energy, that can get really crunchy and uncomfortable for me. Or another one is like vented energy. So when someone's venting their emotions or venting their fear or venting their grief, that can kind of get crunchy for me too. And so when we are supporting our clients or being in relationship with another human, right, and they are in their shit, can you stay rather than vacating? Your capacity to stay and be present with yourself in that process is also going to be the reflection of how present you can actually be with them. So if you are wanting to expand your capacity as a healer, as a mother, as a teacher, as a partner, this is the way that you do it, by learning to be intimate with yourself, right? In return, you become more intimate with life. So staying when it's uncomfortable and staying open. Sometimes when it's uncomfortable, we tend to like close off. We put up our protections, we put up our armor, we go into our protection mechanisms, our patterns, right? And we don't have to be perfect, but the more willing we are to stay open, the more life can open to us, right? And the more whoever else is involved can open as well. And so let's just take another breath here. And the other thing that I wanted to talk a bit about is, when we are in our process, so whether it's in our business or in our relationship, there's these ways that we can set visions or set goals for ourselves, right? And the openings are actually when we are present in our process. So there's a way that our mind thinks. It's about when I get to the retreat, like it's going to be amazing and the thing's going to happen and blah, 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 right? I'm going to get home and I'm going to be so passionate and on fire and I can start sharing more about my work and whatever. Go to this next level. Like for real, that's what our mind does, right? And if we are like just that focused on getting to the place, or maybe it's like getting to the opening in your relationship, right? When we're only focused on like where we're wanting to go, we're missing out on the opportunities of the sweetness. And these openings, right? Where life is giving us these opportunities to receive the sweetness, to receive our own magic, and to receive these little ripples, And one of the things that, I noticed at ceremony was this way that I'm so like accustomed to these big openings, and the energy wasn't that, and it's not because I did anything wrong or different, and it's not because the clients, did anything wrong or different, but it's because it was like the message we were receiving, right? What was moving through the energy was this different opportunity. And I was sharing this in my email today too, where, I'm so accustomed to alignment, and, I'm a Scorpio and I have Scorpio 5 times in my chart, and we have the Scorpio full moon Saturday. And, Scorpio is all about passion and intimacy and like this deep juiciness, right? Death and rebirth, but this depth. And usually, when I do things in my business, that is the energy that like I have behind it, and not only have behind it, but usually I wait to feel that deep, juicy connection before I take action, whether that's sending an email or doing a Facebook Live or doing a video like this, right? And this morning, as I was like, I went on my walk, and I shared this in my email today. I went on this walk and I was kind of frustrated on my walk, and I was annoyed with like all this mental activity, like the insecurities and the not certainties, and knowing that it's like time for me to make some decisions in my business and start moving forward again, and like also feeling vulnerable. And I felt all this energy that was kind of up, and I allowed myself just to feel the frustration about it, and allow the thoughts to be there. I stopped trying to change them, and I allowed them to be present, and I felt into the frustration, and it was like, that's when the opening came, and also this willingness to, that was part of what the message that came forward is like, So even for me, right, there's like this attachment to wanting it to be a certain way, like wanting it to be passionate and aligned and like open, right, to move forward. And what I was being shown is like this Scorpio full moon is death, like death and rebirth. And one of the definitions of passion is death. It's dying. And can I die to my own passion? Can I surrender to the void of it, to the death of it? Like, oh my God, okay, it's not there. And I might have to move forward in my business with no passion. And like, can I just surrender to that? And as soon as I surrendered to it and I allowed myself to take a step anyway, it's like, oh my God, this passion is coming back. And, my point of that being that like, we have to be willing to receive the sweetness along the way. We can't just be fixated on trying to get to the thing, right? So if I would have been fixated on waiting to feel passionate to write an email or to do a video, like who knows how long I would be waiting, right? Or like if, in our ceremony, the last day we went for a hike, and one of the women that were with us, she had been having this vision of a waterfall, and there was going to be a waterfall on the hike at Lake Catherine, and this was like the waterfall she's been seeing and visualizing for years in her meditation, and she was so excited about it. And we ended up when we started the hike, it was a 2-mile loop, and we started, and these people stopped us, and they said, if you're trying to go to the waterfall, you probably should turn around and go the other way, because it's like right on the edge of the other entrance, but like you're gonna have to walk the whole 2 miles to get to it this way. And we could have turned around, right? And we chose not to. And along the way, we stopped and we put our feet in the creek, and we hiked barefoot, and we stopped for a moment and rested, and then we stopped for a moment and like swam in the creek where there was this other little like small waterfall, and we got to swim in the icy cold water, and we sat on a rock and sat in the sun, and a butterfly landed on her, and it was all this sweetness, all these sweet moments, and juicy, and life-giving. And when we ended up finally getting to the waterfall, it was so busy. There were so many people there, and we didn't even want to stay because it was like a lot of kids, and it was busy. It was like we didn't really need to stay there, and if we would have waited for the waterfall to have that opening, right, or to swim there, like we would have missed out on the opportunity, because our expectations probably wouldn't have been met. But because we stopped along the way and we took advantage of these sweet little opening spots, we got to experience the opening. We got to receive the sweetness, right? And this is the same thing in our life, when we're working in our business, when we are, deepening our relationships. It's not about getting to this big orgasmic, ta-da! It's more about, the process and being in the process. And when you allow yourself to be in the process, in this edge of what is, right? Being here right now with what is, not in the future, not 2 miles ahead, right, to daydreaming about the waterfalls. If we would have done that, we would have missed out on these other sweet spots. When we're here, that's where the sweetness is, and it's this willingness to be on the edge of what is, and last night I was laying in bed with James, after he had this event for himself, and we laid down, and he said, I'm realizing I'm not special. And I kind of laughed because, um, this is something that I've been working at too. Like, just this way that, like, sometimes it's like we drink our own Kool-Aid, and it's like the truth is we're all just human. We're not special. And yes, you have, manifesting powers, and you can play with energy and do some shit, and you're not special, And so he was like, I'm not special. And we kind of laughed about it and joked like, oh, our ego bubble is bursted, And I think, being with what is, it keeps us humble, it keeps us real, and it also keeps us connected to others. When we put ourselves on those pedestals of thinking that we're special, thinking that we know more, thinking that, because I'm a coach, I could coach him through this. We're missing out on the opportunity to actually connect and have that true, authentic, heartfelt connection. That human connection. Yeah, so I want to just invite us to take a breath here. Maybe just inviting you to notice, where have you been putting yourself on a special pedestal? In your business, in your relationships. Your ego might not like this too much. Yeah, and just see if there's any parts of you that are willing to step down. It's vulnerable. It's vulnerable. And it's in that vulnerability that, like, there's space for real, true connection. It's getting intimate with life. Yesterday on my walk, when I was still in this void of passion, when I was a kid, I used to sing this song, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I guess I'll go and eat worms. And that's kind of what it feels like. We are here to experience life together, and to witness each other in our pain and in our shame and in our humanness. And there's a way, as society, we've created all these barriers of protection and perfection and all these standards, which actually keep us from being able to have that human connection that we all deeply desire. And it's scary, it's scary to let go of those protections and those walls and those constructs, right, that have been keeping us safe, but also keeping us separated from our true selves and separated from allowing our true self to meet the world. And so, yeah, yesterday, I'm walking and I was like, okay, I'm just going to be in this void and on this edge of like nothing. And I wonder, like, if I could just stay present on this edge, what else is possible? And so I was, walking, and a couple minutes later, there was a butterfly in the middle of my path. And it was on the road and just sitting there, sitting in the road. And I was like, okay, that's it. Right? It wasn't this big orgasm. It wasn't this big ta-da. But it was like, look, there's hope. There's possibility. There is magic. Are you willing to be here to be intimate with life and the possibility that is here, right, on earth, in this life? When you choose to open to life and to being intimate, vulnerable with life, life also opens to you. So, as we approach this Scorpio full moon, which I am so excited about, I invite you to be intimate with life and with yourself. Allow yourself to feel to the depths of your emotions. Allow yourself to feel the grief, the heartache, the dissatisfaction. Allow yourself to feel the void of passion. Allow yourself to feel the praise and the truth of who you are. I have hope for each of us. And yeah, as you just soak this in, I'd love to hear from you. Share what's moving through, share what it brings forward for you, what conversation inside of yourself this brings forward for you. I really desire these episodes, to be conversations. I don't want to be standing here by myself. I really invite us to come together, be in community, right? Create this safe space where we can start to see each other in this deeper new way. And so feel free to join us in the Soul Inspired Success community and share what's coming forward for you. And if you need support, or you're ready to dive deeper, and your mind maybe has been in the way, or you just know that you need support and you're ready for support, I open some spots for one-on-one sessions. I don't always open one-on-one sessions, but Scorpio is my magic. And it's the playground that I rejoice in playing in. And so I'd love to hold space for you. I'll put that link in the comments as well. And you can also message me or email me if you have any questions about, what we can look at or work on in the one-on-one sessions. So I love you, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you and hearing what this brought forward for you. Bye for now.